I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today on my favorite subject, which is functional medicine. And today we'll focus on children, which I haven't done yet. So, even more excited to talk about that. I actually recently read a stat the other day that was like approximately 40% of school age children or adolescents have at least one chronic health condition, whether that's like asthma, obesity, ADHD, diabetes, mental health issues. So, that really prompted me to want to talk about this. Is that stat accurate?
Yeah, so it's probably a bit higher. I actually just posted about it. The CDC, that's where most people got that stat from, says that 40% of school age children have at least one chronic illness.
Yeah.
But, they're not asking every single person. Those are the people who actually go to the doctor and get diagnosed. So there's so many people that are on the verge of, being diagnosed with a chronic illness that just haven't been diagnosed yet. But it's horrible. It's a crisis, and there's so many root causes that I know you'll probably ask about, but it
Yeah.
is ultimately, like, I'm a parent. It's in our hands as parents. We have to take radical responsibility for our health and our children's health if we want them to live a healthy life. Health doesn't happen at the doctor's office. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, it happens at home. It happens with education, and it happens when you empower your kids to make good decisions so that they can have a happy and healthy life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much I want to dive into. I guess first, why don't we, for anyone watching, Nicole is a functional medicine practitioner that founded Ritter Functional Health and works with adults and children on chronic illness. Nicole, why don't you explain, like, what is your definition of functional health? I think a lot of people don't know, and why you founded Ritter Functional Health, like your background.
Yeah, so the definition of functional health, we use like so many different definitions. Health is not just the absence of disease. It's
Mhm.
truly a mind, body, spirit health, like and being happy. So
Mhm.
we work with clients to reverse chronic conditions. We've helped reverse autoimmune disease and
Mhm.
really just like find their way in the world, because I don't think that, well, I know because I used to be chronically ill. When you're chronically ill, you're usually not happy, and your world revolves around being sick. So once you're out of that, you can find your passion in life, and with kids too, kids and adults. Like if you have a kid who's having constant fatigue and migraines, they're not going to be able to enjoy school. They're not going to be able to make friends. So
Yeah.
it's really like functional health is not just the absence of migraines, absence of stomach pain. It's getting to that true place of happiness and health.
And what were you chronically ill with?
Everything. So I had chronic migraines growing up. I had headaches a lot of the time, not every single day, but probably twice a week. And my migraines were debilitating. I couldn't see. I had to, close my eyes and just like sleep it off. I would throw up. Um, and nothing helped. I was on multiple different medications. I had sinus infections that were chronic. I actually had two sinus surgeries because they thought it was a structural issue. I had the passages of my sinuses like widened. Didn't help. I had chronic strep throat as a kid. I got my adenoids out, my tonsils out, just always sick, like catching every illness under the sun, and then really
Mm.
bad anxiety and depression. Um, and all of those are connected. So if someone came to me now, I would be like, okay, let's run a GI map, let's run an O, let's see blood
Mhm.
work. But back then, functional medicine wasn't cool. We're in a really cool age where, I mean, like this is your job connecting people to providers, but it's kind
Yeah.
of cool and it's kind of trendy. I'm 34 years old. Back when I was, in my twins,
Mhm.
back when I was in my teens and even early 20s, like the standard was just, okay, go to the doctor. And there's a
Yeah.
time and a place for doctors and medicine, but
Yeah.
my ailments were due to poor gut health, like inability to handle or deal with stress. I was drinking too much. I was eating
Mhm.
gluten. I was eating super inflammatory. Um, and, none of that could be healed at a doctor's office.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think all of us that come into this world, whether, the practitioners or myself, have a story of like illness, both physical and mental, and like why we found functional medicine and naturopathic medicine. And I love to tell these stories. Every single practitioner that we have in within concierge has empathy because they've lived it, which is so different from traditional medicine. And
Mhm.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like I always say, if I break my leg tomorrow, I'm not going to my functional medicine
Yeah,
practitioner. Like
don't call me.
God bless the surgeon who's gonna fix my leg, and I honor that. But it's like traditional medicine is really good for emergency care and keeping people alive. Whereas where you guys come in, it's like how do we prevent illness or really heal the root of it? So with children, what are the most common ailments that you're seeing?
We see a lot of stomach pain,
Mhm.
which coincides with skin issues. So we see a lot of like skin bumps, eczema, psoriasis, stomach issues like I said, chronic stomach pain, just like, you know, people say it's anxiety, but it's actually, dysbiosis or candida or mold or something like that. So those are two probably of the most common, but they don't have just one thing, right? If someone comes to us with stomach pain, they may have attention issues, they may have behavioral issues, they may have mental health issues. So it's never, and that's what the cool thing about functional medicine, we look at the body as a whole and we look at the whole person. So,
Mm,
like me, when I was young and sick, like I had hormone issues, I had to go to an endocrinologist. I
yeah.
had anxiety and depression. I went to a psychiatrist and a therapist. We look at everything and we can address it. Pretty much anything that's thrown at us, we can address because the diagnosis isn't a problem. There's root causes that usually stem from gut health, poor gut health that got you to that diagnosis, and we can address like what's under the hood, kind of.
What I can't figure out, so maybe you can shed light on this, is like, what is it that happens in traditional medicine that they're not looking in the same places that the holistic practitioners are looking? Is it just a lack of, I've been hearing a lot about maybe they're just not learning that in medical school, but I think that's really hard for people to wrap their mind around, because obviously they learn mostly pharmacology. So what do you think it is? What is the block for traditional doctors?
So, my dad's a heart surgeon. I have like a huge amount of respect for him. Medical school's really effing hard, like really
Hmm.
hard, really long, really intense. And just from talking to some doctors and, from my dad's experience, they're exhausted.
Yeah.
They've spent 8 to 12 years and they're in their specialty and they're like, some of them, not all of them, not most of them, but some of them are like, okay, I did it. I'm here. I'm just going to do my job and not look elsewhere because elsewhere could be a distraction. It's also, it's unfortunately, it's just the system, right? Like medical school, they learn medicine. They don't learn health. I think medicine and health are very, very different. Medicine is needed, it's necessary. My dad has, operated on hundreds and hundreds of people. They probably wouldn't be alive if they didn't have heart surgery. Like you said, if you break your foot, go to the doctor. If you get into a car accident, the ER is needed, but chronic illness cannot be cured or even helped with medicine. It can be managed, you can manage symptoms, but I don't even remember your question now. Um,
It was traditional doctors. Where is
yeah.
the gap with how come they're not looking in the same places? Like, why aren't they looking at the gut? Why aren't they looking
Yeah.
in these same places?
So, because they're looking for diagnosis, most of the time when you get blood work, they'll say it's normal unless you have
Mhm.
diabetes or elevated liver enzymes, so that they can, diagnose you with diabetes or fatty liver disease or some kind of other disease or give you like, one of my good friends is a nurse practitioner. We were just talking about her job, and she's like, I look at CMPs and CBC's blood panels all day long. She works with the elderly, and she orders a lot of blood transfusions. And we just, we're looking at things very differently. I'm not diagnosing, and my tools in my toolbox are nutrition, lifestyle changes, stress management, mind body healing, and supplements.
Mhm.
Um, so I look at things so that I can create a protocol based off things that are in my toolbox. If you go to a doctor, their toolbox is medication or surgery, and that's it.
Yeah.
it's kind of this like awakening kind of once you realize that less I got less angry, right? Because I used to be very, very angry. Like, oh my gosh, I went to all these doctors. How could
Mhm.
they put, a 22-year-old on all these medications? I was on prednisone for a month that caused just so many different side effects. I was really, really angry. And once you realize, well, they are trying to help, but the only way they can help is with that medication. So I looked elsewhere. I started listening to podcasts. There's so much good free information out there. But I
Mhm.
think, in order to truly heal, you have to know what's going on in your own body and, look under the hood, do all these labs and do the labs that the doctors don't care about because they're not a diagnostic test. They're not looking to diagnose a disease.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I think this conversation is circulating a lot with Casey Means and Callie Means talking about they came from similar to your dad. Like Casey came from being a surgeon and
Right.
just raising the question of why are people coming here sick? And my next question would definitely be what are the root causes of some of these issues that you're seeing that are super common with kids?
hmm It starts with nutrition, and unfortunately, not to put blame on anyone, but it starts with nutrition from the mother when we're building these babies in our bodies, right? So I had hyperemesis when I was pregnant, so I actually couldn't eat a ton. I threw up like 5 to 10 times a day. It was horrible. So I was really worried about how was my son going to develop.
Yes.
Luckily we started supplements and eating food right off the bat, so he's perfectly fine, like developmentally, mentally. But it starts with the mom. So what are you eating? And a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant, get out of jail free card, I could eat whatever I want. But we're we're building, literally, like physically building the next generation, and we should care what we feed them.
Yeah.
And so it really does, like, it starts with the parents, and I keep saying, like, radical responsibility. It's not judging you, it's not shaming you, it's not like, "Oh, wow, I'm better than you." It's like, we need to make these changes because our world is not how it was 100 years ago. There's
No.
hundreds of man-made toxins that
Mhm.
our bodies were not developed to be able to process on our own.
Yeah.
So toxins is huge. I see a
Mhm.
ton of environmental chemical toxins, pollutants in,
Mhm.
glyphosate in
Mhm.
babies.
Yeah.
Um, which, even I eat organic. I did a glyphosate test. It was through the roof because it's just part of our environment. But because I know that I have glyphosate in my body, I can work on detoxing it.
Yeah.
Um, Other root causes: food. Nutrition is the best form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. You can change your life through food for the better or for the worse. So
Yeah.
everything that your baby is putting in its mouth, or your son, or your, teenager, however old kids are, that's impacting its cellular health. It's impacting everything. Its ability to make ATP, cellular energy, its ability to digest, to poop. We need to poop. A lot of kids are constipated too, and that goes back to what they're eating, their stress levels, and also that they're usually not drinking enough water.
Yeah.
Um, so those are the main, like, toxins,
Mhm.
food, stress, and chemicals.
Um, one thing with the food that I think is so important to talk about, and I keep trying to really articulate this in the proper way. I think there's a more granular level to health that we have to be responsible for that people don't realize. I was just talking with a good friend of mine before this who's a mom, and she was sending me like different products, like, is this healthy? And what I think the conversation, and I'm sure you deal with this a lot, is really education. Parents go to a grocery store, they're buying vegetables, they're buying fruits, they're buying things that say that they're healthy, but they're not, right? The seed
Right.
oils and the gums, the
Yeah.
dyes, yeah. And I think there's a deeper level that we have to get now because we're being deceived
Yes.
by the food. And so if you could elaborate on, I are people at this point supposed to only go to the farmer's market to get fruits and vegetables?
So I'm a cool, crunchy mom. I like to call myself. I'm not like totally, crunchy.
Mhm.
So I'm realistic, right? So a lot of my clients are busy moms. They're working moms. I'm a working mom. I work during the day and I'm a
Yeah.
mom. My son goes to daycare. We can only control what we can control, and stress is worse than bad food.
Hmm.
So first step, like you just said, is education. So educating the clients on, okay, what food is actually hurting you and your kids, and what food is helping you and your kids. So figuring that out, and that's based on lab work.
Hmm.
Um, Farmers markets for most people aren't realistic because they're not year round. I live in Colorado. We have farmers market from like June to September.
Yeah.
Um, so organic as much as possible. I shop at Costco because it's affordable and
Hmm.
I can get a lot of things. My son is a 3.5-year-old. He actually eats a ton. There's only three of us in the house, but I shop for like, five people basically because there's two of
Yeah.
us who are boys. So organic fruits and vegetables from Costco. I order meat online from like Butcher Box.
Hmm.
And really it's just like eating whole foods.
Yeah.
I think there's so many new snacks and trendy stuff coming out. Some of them
Hmm.
are really good, but some of them, like you said, they're kind of tricking us into thinking they're healthy so that they can buy them because being healthy is trendy, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about like the trends and also the gluten-free trend. Like we're gluten-free, but we're whole foods gluten-free. Most of our food is whole foods. Yeah. Do we have snacks? Absolutely. I'm not anti snacks. I mean, I have a three
Yeah.
and a half year old and we're on the go. We travel a ton.
Hmm.
But we also are going to pick like the lowest amount of ingredients in the foods.
Yeah. I think the greenwashing,
Yeah.
it's prevalent. Like I think formula is a big topic
Mhm.
that there's not a lot of, I don't know, understanding of. I don't have a child, but from what I understand, like most of the formulas that you buy on the shelf have seed oils.
Yeah.
And I don't think people really even understand what seed oils are and why
Mhm.
they're so damaging to the body. And I think it's pretty unconceivable to people that they would be putting this on the shelf. And so
Well,
what do
that's
you
the
do?
thing. That's the thing. So people are like, well, if it's at the grocery store, it's healthy.
I know.
There's
Yeah.
fragrance at the grocery store, like, and you have to think about what's on the grocery store is regulated by the FDA. And this is getting some people may be like, oh, this is conspiracy now, but there's people that worked for the FDA are on the board of Pfizer.
Yeah.
Like, big food and big pharma are in cahoots and they do
Hmm.
not care about your health. They care about profits. And what's
Yeah.
profitable? Sick people are very profitable.
Yeah.
Healthy people, big pharma can't make money on you if you're healthy because you're not going to be prescribed a prescription they have to refill every single month for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Um, and the cool thing is like it's sad and it's effed up. We can't change the system as much as we're trying. I'm positive that we can change a lot, but like it took like there's a lot of people you would have to change. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying to change like the whole system. I'm trying to educate parents to, empower parents to make healthy choices for themselves. When a mom feels better and has energy, that's going to affect the entire family.
Yeah.
And it's going to help the entire family get better and stay better and prevent them being on medication.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's like, it's definitely, I think when I use the word epidemic, people don't really see it, especially if their kids aren't, I don't know, dealing with something as extreme as like cancer, autoimmune. But I mean, even skin issues and or behavioral issues, like it's all in the same wheelhouse. I think a lot of clients lately have been coming to me with kids that have intense behavioral issues, right? And ADD, ADHD is so prevalent. When I was a kid, my brother was put on Ritalin, and a lot of our peers were as well. How do you treat kids that come in with behavioral issues? Like where do you start with that? And are you against the ADHD medications?
I was on Adderall and Vyvanse. So am I against?
Double whammy.
Yeah, double whammy. I took them every single
We
day, so
both.
I would start with Adderall, and then my doctor was like, "Oh, just, take Vyvanse later in the day." And the way that it's treated, I think, is detrimental. I think
Yeah.
there's no education. ADHD, it's a neuroinflammation, right? And I have a post coming out tomorrow about ADHD, anxiety, autism, and allergies, how they're all connected. And,
Mhm.
they're from very similar to every other chronic condition. It's chemicals, it's gut health, it's like that leads to neuroinflammation and nutrition. And no matter what's happening, what kind of behavioral issue, if you change their diet, if you help them deal with stress, I really am a huge proponent of therapy, whether it be, for like mental health, like talk therapy, EMDR, or any type of like therapy. I don't think we can just do nutrition and functional medicine. I think like the talk part needs to be there as well.
Yeah.
But if you address these things, the ADHD can get better, or can become their superpower.
Yeah.
So like for me, I still have ADHD, but it's my superpower. It's the reason I'm able to run 4 businesses. I
Yeah.
use it. It's not an excuse. It's like, okay, cool. Like Nicole's going to do this now. And I think like just the way it's like stigmatized and diagnosed so early, like the
Yeah.
fact that they're diagnosing 5-year-old boys with ADHD, they probably need to go outside and run.
Yeah.
Like they're boys, you know? Like
Yeah.
I took my son to someone, they would probably be like, "Oh, he has ADHD," and I would be like, No, he's a 3.5-year-old boy," you
Yeah.
know? So it's just, yeah, I'm against how it's treated right now because there's not a clinical workup. They don't know if they're getting enough nutrition to support brain development and brain health, or if they're getting
Mhm.
enough healthy fats, B vitamins, if their body can detox, if they're full of toxins, you know, if there's mold in their body. There's so many things that should be done that should be standard of care prior to medication for
Yeah.
ADHD, in my opinion.
Yeah. Which I feel like is like anything, right? Like, I talk a lot about anxiety and depression and how many people are on SSRIs and how much they were pushing me on them and Xanax and all the things before. It's
Mm,
like, why don't we check what's going on in the body and what have you been through in your life? Like I always say those two things are so important. Like what generational traumas have you been
right.
carrying for centuries in your family? And yeah, the toxins is huge. I was just talking to a friend before we got on the call, and she was like, "Why would I go to a functional medicine practitioner when I trust my pediatrician?" And I
I
think that's
love my pediatrician.
yeah, I'm
Yeah. So pediatricians are there for a reason. If they're there for a reason, right? Just like as a well check or just check in. I'm not anti pediatrician. My pediatrician actually refers us clients. Um,
Mhm.
there's things that they can't do in the office.
Yeah,
Um, I'm, I think that we could work as a team. If there's a behavioral issue, pediatrician, really, if there's anything like beyond their scope, they'll give a referral, right?
yeah,
Like we're still actually, my whole entire family is actually really good friends with our pediatrician. Like my pediatrician, him and my dad are friends, him and my mom are friends. He would
yeah.
always refer out. My mom's a therapist. He would refer a lot of kids to my mom.
Mm,
So a good pediatrician should have, like a Rolodex of people that they're referring.
yeah,
That's because realistically, they can talk to the parents, but they only have like 15 to 20 minutes.
yeah,
So they're very limited in what they can educate you on. They can, give vaccines and medications. Outside of that, you know, there's so much that can be done,
yeah.
right?
What
So we
is
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what is your take on vaccines? I mean, it seems like there's more vaccines pushed now more than ever. Is there like do you have like a blanket viewpoint on it or situational?
Um,
Speak freely. This is a free flowing platform.
wait, where is
People
this
with
going? Is this going on Instagram?
This is where people want the truth. Yeah. A
Okay.
YouTube too.
So there's way more vaccines than there used to be. So there's a lot of these parents, like, our age are like, well, I got vaccines and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's consider there used to be like 15 childhood vaccines. Now there's 40 plus, and they're combined. I don't know the exact number. I'm almost positive there's 40 plus.
Mhm.
There's mercury in vaccines. Which there has to be, right? There has to be some kind of metal in vaccines. I'm not an expert on vaccines, but it's used as something like either a binding agent or a preservative or
Mhm.
something. Unless it's a live vaccine, then I don't think that there's heavy metals in them. Um, so it's, if you think about it, it's adding to your kid's toxic burden. I do
Yeah.
have a very strong stance on not giving vaccines to kids who are sick. If your
Yeah.
kid has a cold, if they're like a little off, their immune system cannot handle. And a good pediatrician should say, okay, let's delay it. Let's,
Mhm.
yes, but most pediatricians will say, yeah, that's fine. Like we do them all the time. I've only had a couple cases that we've worked with that are vaccine injured. But those cases will change your life and they will change your opinion and you will never look back. Um,
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm not a fan of them
Mhm.
um, because of what I've seen, because of
Yeah.
how it changes like certain kids' personalities, life. There's a really good book. Dr. Kenneth Bach has a book
Mhm.
called Healing the New Childhood Epidemics. He is way more eloquent on the vaccine conversation, and I highly recommend anyone who is questioning like whether to give their child vaccines. In some states you have to. California, I don't think there's ever an exemption.
Yeah.
Luckily, in Denver, I just had to take a course to get exemption status. I have to take it every single year. Of course, it's a course from the CDC saying that I'm a horrible mother and that my kid's going to die of the measles. But, take it with a grain of salt. Like, I would say just like use your mother's intuition, and you're not a bad mom or dad either way. If you choose to vaccinate your child, that's your choice, and you should be
Yeah.
able to have that choice. Um, wow, I'm just
Yeah.
like talking in circles, but it's a hard conversation to have because and RFK talks a lot about vaccines. He's really educated on the topic, and I love listening to him speak on it
Yeah.
because he's got a lot of moms that have come to him that are vaccine injured.
Yeah.
Um, and if you look at the rise of autism, it's closely linked to a couple things. Folic acid in our food supply, which I believe started in the 80s, the increase of vaccines, the increase of toxins in our world and chemicals.
Yeah.
Um, and if you look at like the symptoms of mercury poisoning and autism, there's a lot of overlap. So it's interesting, like I think some autoimmune diseases are misdiagnosed because we see a lot of mold. So some autoimmune diseases that I see go away after you address the mold.
Mhm.
So is it really, and in some cases it is autism and you cannot reverse it.
Yeah.
In some cases, is it autism or is it heavy metal toxicity? Is it, mold? Is it like lack of methylation? Is it toxin? What actually is it? And I talk a lot about like the symptom or a diagnosis. It's just a cluster of symptoms
Mhm.
that was made into a diagnosis so that there could be a plan of action, whether it be like, like the DSM for mental health. It's like, okay, you have this diagnosis, this is the standard of treatment. It's the same, like, I think it's the Merck manual, like, you know, what is the diagnosis and what is the treatment plan?
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter to me. Like, a diagnosis doesn't matter because you aren't your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like just because someone got diagnosed with ADHD, they probably weren't born with ADHD. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, you know, it's really like the toxins and the neuroinflammation and the gut inflammation is what's causing the ADHD. So let's get rid of those. And then the diagnosis can go away.
Yeah. I think it's super similar to anxiety, depression, and OCD, right? When people come my way, they're like, I need to see a practitioner for OCD. I'm like, or do you need to work with somebody who can get to the root of why you're exhibiting the symptoms of
Right.
OCD?
Yeah.
even that is just like I guess a new way of thinking. And yeah, and so it's very similar to that. So when we're looking at like all the different illnesses children are having that are most common, right? We said skin, autism, ADHD, autoimmune, and we said that it's really toxins in the environment, in the food,
Neuroinflammation,
and
gut health.
neuroinflammation.
Mhm.
Why do you why do you think there's so many more toxins in the food? Do you think it's really because of the greed of the food companies to be mass producing, and they'll do it at any cost to produce more? Like, what is your theory on it? I mean, I have my own, but what's yours?
Yeah, so Monsanto's is a huge reason. There's chemicals, glyphosate, there's GMO corn, they just passed there's allowed to be GMO wheat, which is the first time in US history there's allowed to be GMO wheat, which is glyphosate. It's like not glyphosate free, but it basically like repels glyphosate or something. So yeah, there's man-made chemicals. So
Yeah.
there's food scientists that are their job is to create chemicals to make food more addicting. Because when food is addicting, we eat more of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, grass-fed beef is not addicting. It's just not. Good whole food, while it's good, I actually do crave red meat. I love red meat. I crave like a good pot roast. I'm actually going to make one tomorrow. But that's because my taste buds are used to it. If I filled up on junk food and I ate like Fritos, I would crave Fritos. So I definitely think it's a money thing.
Yeah.
Um, and
Me too.
it's when you think of it less with like anger and more with like, okay, they're just really good at their job. Like they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're selling the food, they're making a ton of money, but I don't participate in that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't buy from certain brands because I'm not interested. Like I said, I personally don't think I can change the system, but I can stop buying from them and
Yeah.
I can, change our family's health for the better because I'm not, supporting them. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's all everything when you really look at big companies, everything always goes back to money. Like where's the
Always.
money? It's getting people addicted to and not addicted to drugs, but like needing the drugs, right?
Yeah.
Someone who develops type 2 diabetes due to their diet and lack of exercise needs medication for the rest of their life unless, you know, they change their diet and lifestyle. But doctors aren't well, most doctors, some are, but most are just going to be like, okay, here's metformin, and then if they need insulin, here's insulin. But they're
Yeah.
not going to say, hey, you need to change your entire life, or you're going to have an early death, because that's
Yeah.
a really hard conversation to have, and that's putting. We kind of go to doctors and we're like, okay, save us. You're
Hmm.
here to save me, and they can save people. They can save people's lives and they can give you a pill that will save your life,
Yeah.
but we're responsible for saving our own lives. If you want to stay off medication, you have to save your own life. I can't do it. My team as practitioners, we can't do it. We can give you protocols, we can tell you what's going on in your body. We can give you the guide and the steps and the tools, but you have to do it and that's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think what I've been saying lately is like we're in like a wellness revolution right now. And I feel like I'm a part of a movement of people, whether it's doctors or functional medicine practitioners, people just speaking up about this issue.
Yeah.
And I think the scariest part of all of it is really deeply understanding that you have to be responsible because we can't trust the systems that I think we blindly trusted for so long. I mean, Callie Means talks about how the cigarette industry is in cahoots with the processed food industry. And I mean,
And
it's,
they're like the king and queens of making people addicted to things, right? Like cigarettes are addicting.
yeah, yeah. Well, so, okay, let me see. We covered medication,
Yeah.
ADHD, skin issues, why doctors are not looking in the gut. What
Was
do you
done.
think about the flu vaccine?
No, never would get it. They tried to
Yeah,
make me get pregnant. Like, no, thank you.
yeah. I think I,
Next topic.
why do you why this is the thing that I kind of run into with people. They're like, unless they're super sick, they're kind of like, why would I go to a functional medicine practitioner, right? And that's what I'm trying to change, because it's really getting people comfortable with like bettering their health while they're well,
Yeah.
instead of going all the routes when they're sick. So,
So there's a quote that's a ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And
mhm,
I actually made a post on it today. You don't have to wait for a diagnosis to get healthy. Symptoms are your body telling you, like, hey, there's a problem.
yeah,
So I was with one of my friends this weekend. She was like, I'm tired all the time. My psoriasis is flaring, but like, I think I'm healthy. And I'm like, you're not. Like,
yeah,
those are signs from your body that's saying, help me. So,
mm,
you don't have to be like diagnosed with an autoimmune disease or on your deathbed to be or to benefit from functional medicine. There's
yeah,
a lot of people do come to us with a diagnosis and they're scared, and I'm like, thank goodness you found us, because when I got diagnosed with PCOS, I was just given a pamphlet and told to lose weight even though I was barely 100 pounds. They're like,
yeah.
oh, PCOS, it's a weight issue. And I'm like, I don't think it was a
Yeah.
weight issue for me. I wasn't even eating. Like,
Yeah, they put me on metformin and spironolactone and birth control within the first week of the diagnosis.
yeah, they didn't give me any medication, but I was so lost. And that's one of the reasons I'm in this field. It catapulted me into research.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, a diagnosis is not, it takes years. If you get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, that was developing in your body for years. We don't just wake up one day and your body's like, oh, let me attack the myelin sheath in my brain. Like, our bodies are not vindictive or evil. Like, our bodies want us to heal. And these autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses, and they don't just happen.
Yeah.
So listening to your body, if you truly wake up and feel amazing, then maybe don't go to a functional medicine doctor. If you're like,
Yeah.
if you don't have that much energy, if you're constipated, if you need 2 cups of coffee, maybe if you just want to like fine tune your diet, or if you're curious, like if your family has autoimmune disease or some kind of chronic illness, then, reach out to someone.
Yeah.
But I kind of think of it like, if like I do labs on myself every year. I'm not
Mhm.
sick. Like,
Yeah.
I'm currently healthy, but I want to be, I'm a mom now. I have a responsibility. I'm like responsible for another human, and I want to be on this earth as long as I can. And,
Yeah.
longevity is huge in the functional medicine space. You can age backwards if you're healthy and if your cells are healthy.
Yeah. The symptoms, it's so interesting because I think skin is one of the most overlooked symptoms I've seen. I think a lot of people are not connecting the dots to exactly what you said. It's a messenger.
Yes.
And I've seen people go to doctors for skin issues and they're like, it's fine, it's normal. And I think parents are taking it at face value because it's a doctor.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, what do you see with when it comes to eczema and psoriasis in kids? Is it always the gut and the toxins, or what is more common?
The gut. Most of the time it's the gut, but you have to think about what's causing the gut to be out of balance. It could be toxins, it could be mold, it could be something, like it could be inflammatory food. So while usually all most disease does start from the gut,
Hmm.
why is the gut, what's happened? Why is there candida? Why is there dysbiosis? Why is there H. pylori? So figuring out those things is crucial. But
Yeah.
our skin it's a reflection of what's happening inside of our body. If
Hmm.
your insides are healthy and if your gut is healthy, you're going to have great skin, and you're not
Yeah.
going to need a 10-step skin routine,
Mhm.
because this what you slather on your face is not helping your gut get healthy. It's probably, if it's like chemical laden, then it's going to
Yeah.
hinder health. But yeah, it's something where if you go to a doctor, their options and their tools in their tool belt are antibiotics or steroids. And
Yes.
unfortunately, a lot of people choose antibiotics, whether it be for an ear infection or a skin infection or, just illness. They give their kids antibiotics. I grew up on antibiotics. Like it
Mhm.
was just the thing. Oh, I
Yeah.
always had a Z-Pack,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how horrible they were for my gut. And now that I know, I tell everyone that will listen. And unfortunately, some people are like, well, what else would I do?
Yeah.
Um, there's so much else you can do. There's all natural antibiotics. There's
If there's a child having, psoriasis or eczema, is it hindering them to like, ride it out, or is it something that should be addressed immediately? Like, what do you do with that?
So psoriasis and eczema are more chronic. They're not like an acute infection. Like if it was a staph infection, for example, go to the doctor and get medication. Like staph infection, we can help. There's staphylococcus bacteria in the gut, and if that's overgrown, we can help. But if it's like an acute staph infection, like my brother got one from wrestling in high school, go get medication. Eczema and psoriasis, they're an immune reaction, and it's more so chronic. So leaving it be and like not putting steroids or not getting antibiotics, it's not bad. um, you do have to do something, right? You have to change the diet. What we do is we run organic acid testing and GI stool map testing. If the kid is over the age of 4 and the parents are willing, we'll do blood work as well, because we want to see everything, right? Your kid is not just your skin or your stool. Like we want to see the whole picture.
Yeah.
Um, so most of the time it's some kind of infection that we have to address, whether that be candida, H.
Mhm.
pylori, like just a GI overgrowth of bacteria. And then we have to bring the body back into balance, remove inflammatory foods and reduce inflammation. So
Yeah.
that's huge, and that takes a while. It's not a 1 month process, right? It is holistic healing is always longer. And that's something that parents and just people in general need to realize. Like because we're not using medication, it's going to be longer. But
So
then there's so many less side effects, and everything else usually gets better as well because you're healing the whole body.
So true. A lot of what my role, I always say, is sometimes it's just simply being a support system as somebody comes off the SSRIs or
Yeah.
comes off birth control or is coming out of that world of like quick fixes and band-aids, because like it's a long process. And I think a lot of people think they come and they get recommendations and that's it. But no, it's really like supporting them as they go through it. When you're coming off the pill, you're getting acne sometimes, and you're coming off SSRIs, you're having mood swings. I mean, it's so just like holding someone's hand as they embark on that longer term journey. A lot of parents, right, they want to go through insurance and they don't understand why they need to spend the money. And I have this conversation a lot about like reprioritizing what's important to you. And
Hmm.
what do you say to parents when they tell you like, they want to go through insurance or it feels like it's too big of an investment?
So our kids program is only 4 months, which I actually think is really short. A lot of people, if there's a more chronic issue, they'll renew for another 4 months and do like an 8 month program.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the price, I mean, what you're getting, we
Mhm.
should charge, in my opinion, we should charge double, but I don't want to be unaffordable for people.
Yeah.
So our program, it includes all of the labs, which the labs are expensive in and of themselves, but you're going to get answers that you never would have gotten anywhere else. And you're going to have a clear path towards healing.
Yeah.
And whether or not symptoms completely resolve in 4 months, they probably won't because it takes
Yeah.
longer to heal, but you
Yeah.
will have, it's just like so the hope you get of knowing why your kid is having these symptoms and connecting the dots. And like when I was going through it, I felt crazy. I was like, oh, I went to all these doctors, they say I'm fine, my labs are normal, I'm on the medication, like why
Yeah.
am I not getting better? And as a parent, if my luckily my son is not sick, but I can't even imagine the feeling my parents felt having me go through that and feeling hopeless and helpless. So it's really like we're giving people hope or, we're helping people.
Can parents do that either don't have the budget or don't feel like they need to spend on organic foods because their kids are fine?
I would say that food is the most important thing because that's, we're eating food and drinking water all day long, and that's going to make a huge impact on our health. If you can't afford organic, then make sure you're soaking and washing your produce, and prioritizing whole food. So while I like to prioritize organic, I realize that's not in the budget for everyone. It is unfortunately way more expensive. And, we can't control the price of food. So wash your produce. And then another thing I would say is that these biohacking is really trendy, but it's not necessary. You do not have to go buy a $500 red light so that you can heal or your kids can heal. Get them out into sunlight. There's so many free things that you can do with your kids, literally free. Go outside, go into a creek or a lake, like let them run around barefoot. Um, just like provide them with sunshine, food, and clean water, and you're already on your way towards health. Um, Really, I just want to emphasize like, stop buying junk food. Stop giving your kids Doritos. They don't need Doritos. There's no nutritional, like, there's nothing nutritional in a bag of Doritos. It is a waste of money. It's a waste of, my mom used to say it's a waste of calories. It truly is. It's not
Yeah.
about the calories either. It's about like what's in those calories. There's nothing good in a bag of Doritos. So like, stop buying junk food. Um and just like prioritize whole foods and happiness too. Like, prioritize your happiness as a parent and prioritize your health as a parent, because when we feel better, we do better, and our kids see everything. My
Yeah.
son is 3.5 years old. He sees, hears, and knows everything. Like, I can't
Yeah.
even imagine what he's going to be like as a 10-year-old. But if he sees you eating something healthy, he's going to want that because mommy and daddy are eating it.
Yeah.
And if he sees us eating a bag of chips and cookies, he's going to want that.
Yeah.
So really just like work on your own health and then work on your family's health. But it's
Yeah.
so worth it. Like, it's so worth it to spend money on your health, because 10 years from now, you won't be spending money on hospital bills and medication.
I think that's the biggest misconception is the detriment these foods have on health long term. And then I think the other part of it is getting educated on what is junk food, right? Because again, if it's in a package and it says healthy
Um,
goldfish, that does not mean it's healthy goldfish, and goldfish aren't healthy anyway. So I
yeah,
feel like education on what junk food really is, which is probably the entire perimeter of the grocery store.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, it is hard as parents. Like, my son's in daycare. Like, he's never had a goldfish, but he comes home now and he like knows what goldfish are. And I'm like, oh, great. Like,
Yeah.
they gave him goldfish, and it's it's my choice. I'm not having that. Like, we wrote on his intake forms, like, we don't eat processed foods, we don't eat dyes, like, do not give him this. But it's happening, and
Yeah.
I choose to like be a little more relaxed about that and then control what I can control within the home.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't want him to grow up and resent me and then go off. I've heard of that happening. I had a client. He was like, "Well, my mom was like a health nut, so I don't like anything healthy now, and I never want that to happen." And it's really just like education too. Like, my son is 3.5 old. He doesn't care about nutrients in his food.
Yeah.
He would be like, what are you talking about? Like, I want to go play
Yeah.
with trucks. But like, when he's 10 or 12, like, make it fun, make it cool. Illy wrote a kid's book about like nutrition. I don't know what it's called, but it's like about foods and the nutrients within foods, and it's a kid's book. So just like making it fun and educating,
Yeah.
as they get older.
Mm. Amazing. Well, thank you. This was so educational and informational. I'm excited to share it with all of my friends that are parents. And it's just good to know for us that are gearing up for that journey of parenthood.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.